Hey guys, Jasensational here, and welcome to the first episode of what I shall deem as Jasensational's Jank, a series where I will showcase my own original deck ideas and take them on a trip to ladder. If you've seen any of my other deck guide videos, this series will be aimed to be a little less serious and introduce some potentially dubious deck ideas as well. If you're excited to see more content like this, then please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into my first creation and the series poster child, which is RiViven. So I've actually had this deck concept for a while now. The version that I first created a few months ago used Draven with Vi, and with the Noxious region, you had tools like Overwhelm and Kato the Arm to grant Vi Overwhelm. And of course, when Vi gets overwhelmed, she gets 10 attack and really punches through some enemy blockers. But with the newest expansion, we got ourselves a bunch of cool new toys, and most notably is RiViven and her Reforge package, which allows us to generate incredibly cheap ways to pair Vi with keywords such as Overwhelm and Quick Attack that will really highlight how strong Vi can be. And something along these lines is probably the closest build to what I can call a Vi deck, which is really interesting because you've probably never heard that before. Uh, and so this deck is built around Vi, and Vi will be our main win condition. Now, Revive in itself is somewhat of an aggressive mid-range type of combo deck. As you can see, we have a pretty decent early curve, starting with 2 copies of Zonite Urchin, 3 copies of Chempunk Pickpocket and Ballistic Bot, and for 3 drops, we have some pretty well-statted cards like Iron Ballista, Sump Dredgers, that will kind of support us through the early game and help us generate a little bit of pressure against slower decks. Now, at the top end, we do have 2 copies of J Medarda to act as a late game cycle engine, and 2 copies of Captain Farron to close out games with Overwhelms and Decimates. To support our units, we are running 3 copies of Whirling Death, 2 copies of Sharpened Resolve, and 2 copies of Survival Skills, which has actually really surprised me in this kind of deck archetype, how good and how useful it can be. So you'll definitely see it coming up in some of the later clips. And for some of the removal parts, we're running 2 copies of Scorched Earth for landmark and niche removal, followed with 2 copies of Tribeams because we have so many 3-drops. Now, this is kind of a post-production edit because I originally played around with the first deck concept for a really long time, but then after a while, I kind of started to refine it a little bit more and came up with what you see here. Instead of 3 copies of RiViven, it plays 2 copies of Draven instead, and still 1 copy of RiViven. But I think that ultimately Draven is just a better card than RiViven for what it does. It's kind of hard to describe, but with Draven, you can apply a lot more pressure early on, and we still do have some of the Reforge cards, but they're there as a support for Vi rather than a support for RiViven. Um, Even though I would presume this to be a more viable deck, it is a little bit more different of a deck concept, as it's more of a Draven Vi deck rather than a Riven Vi. And so for the purposes of this video, we're going to be focusing on the first deck list, but I'll be playing around with the second deck list as well, just to really figure out if it's a better way to go in this expansion. I will say that I think Riven's Reforged package is kind of weak as a whole, but we can go into that more detail later on. But the main question that we really want to ask ourselves is, why are we playing this deck with Riven paired with Vi? Well, of course, the big payoff of this deck is Vi. This is a Vi deck. It's built around Vi. Now, Vi is pretty decent, being able to challenge high health units with its really high attack and potentially survive multiple attacks due to her tough keyword. Once she levels up, every time she strikes during combat, she also deals an additional 5 damage. But Vi becomes absolutely insane when you give her the Overwhelm keyword, especially when leveled. In addition to striking the Nexus for 5 damage when leveled, having a 10 attack paired with Overwhelm can deal like 7, 8 more damage through an enemy blocker. And you can deal just exorbitant amount of damage in one attack. Pairing Vi with the likes of Whirling Death during an attack not only does Whirling Death synergize with Vi because each time Vi strikes using Whirling Death, she also deals an additional 5 damage. But because the way the deck is built around to kind of have an Overwhelm unit support with Vi, you can use Whirling Death very aggressively as well to clear blockers of Overwhelm units to push even more damage. And it's just absolutely ridiculous when it goes off. Now to support Vi and to help her buff her attack up so that she can level, we do have the likes of Weapon Hilt and Sharpen Resolve, and there's also the Glinting Blade Fragment that you can generate, which acts as a 3 attack buff for Vi for 1 mana. And so there's clearly a pretty good synergy with the Reforged cards and Vi, each one being able to help her in some way. And of course, we also have RiViven, who is also able to generate us those fragments herself, and having a pretty decent stat line is pretty great. So let's talk survival skills. I think survival skills is an absolutely insane card in the matchups it works in. This is particularly to board-centric decks, or mostly board-centric decks. This will be against things like plazas, so scouts, Lucian Ephemerals, Garen, etc. Anything that tries to use damage-based removal or use their board aggressively. You can use survival skills at burst speed by discarding it with cards like Rummage, your Stump Dredgers, and your Zonite Urchins to give a card like Vi or leveled up Riven or even a Captain Farron the it's not really a keyword, but they can't drop below 1 health this turn, meaning that you can have like a very clutch save that could guarantee your Vi to level up, for example, or get some really favorable trades in. Even on defensive turn, most people don't think about playing survival skills out for its 5 mana, but it can be so crucial when you have, say, like 3, 4 units on board, and you're playing against scouts, for example. A survival skills can just shut down their attack outright because they're throwing away their units into your board, and your board doesn't even die that turn. And most importantly, it can catch your opponent off guard. They don't expect this card coming, and if you can save survival skills with a Rummage in hand, you can really pop off on a key turn that can kind of just swing the game into your favor at that point. Now, of course, Whirling Death, I mentioned before, works well with Vi because a leveled up Vi with Whirling Death deals 5 additional damage, or you can level up Vi on stack using Whirling Death. So say if your opponent Vengeance is your Vi, you can use Whirling Death to level up Vi so that the next time you draw a Vi, you don't have to scale it back up to 10 attack. But of course, Whirling Death also pairs really well with some of our Overwhelm cards in this deck, namely Iron Ballista or Captain Farron, or even any units we can grant Overwhelm with the Blade Fragments. Being able to clear the block in front of an Overwhelm unit means that the Overwhelm unit gets to strike the enemy for the full amount of damage. Now, as a combo deck, we're looking for our key cards like Vi, Riven, and maybe some of our tools like Weapon Hilts. And so we're running a pretty light discard package with 3 Rummages, 3 Stump Dredgers, and 2 Zonite Urchins. To act as discard fodder, we are running 3 Ballistic Bots, and they're mainly there to generate ignition so that we can discard them, but having a 1 mana play can also help scale Vi across several turns. And for our late end, we're also running 2 copies of Jay Medarda, and it can be pretty good by exchanging some of your Reforged spells to draw a card at burst speed for 1 mana. But in faster matchups, Jay can also become a card that you can discard. I will say here that Jay is not very good in this deck, simply because it's a little bit slow. I guess it's more of a problem with the card and the current meta right now than its position with the deck. But there are certain situations where he really pops off and he can just draw you 4 cards in a turn, and that can really just regenerate your hand. Now, let's talk about the key thing that when I'm thinking of when designing decks. Of course, this is part of Jasensational's Jank, but I do really care about a deck's competitivity. And it started off really well. I started playing this deck after I hit diamonds, and it was going really well at first. I went 16-7 and even had a 10-3 streak at one point. But then I played the deck again the next day, and my win rate just started to tank. At the very end, I had about a 50% win rate across, I'll just say 40 odd games. Um, and it's no real surprise, especially with the current meta. I think that combo decks that really go all in on one card, especially when they're in regions that don't necessarily have a good way to protect them, have some really bad matchups. You could compare something like RiViven to a Targan Lee deck, but of course, Targan region itself has tools like, Pale Cascade, Guiding Touch, Sunblessed Vigor, Bastion, and even, of course, Lee itself can generate barriers, which really help the survivability of the card and allows you to just go all in, right? Unfortunately, you don't get the same thing with the Noxus PNZ regions. But that's not to subtract how fun and crazy this deck can be when you pull off the combo. And of course, the goal of the series is not necessarily to make competitive lateral decks, but it would just be a really good, a good addition. So now let's just take a moment to talk about Reforge. We've covered the basic grounds of this deck, but let's talk a little bit more about the card choice that came around designing some of these inclusions. When we look at our deck, the only cards that I run are Weapon Hilt and RiViven, simply because the other 2 minions right now, being Blade Squire and Rune Weaver, simply have really poor stat lines. A 1 attack 1 drop gets eaten by a lot of 2 attack 1 drops, and a 1 health stat line just falls really short to deck cards like Go Hard, Withering Whales, Vile Feast, etc. That it's just not very good. In addition, they require an action or even 2 because Blade Scar still has to die before you get the Reforged cards. So if you're trying to pop off on a singular turn, you'd have to wait to play Rune Weaver, your opponent plays a card, and then you can use the spells, unless of course you play them up front. But that just means that the minions themselves have a little bit less flexibility, whereas cards like Weapon Hilt is so strong because it's a burst speed card, and of course it synergizes well with Vi being able to buff her attack, or also in even more situational area, you can use it to trade down a better unit. But being able to grant a Reforge card at burst speed is really important because sometimes if you pass initiative over to your opponent, that just gives them a chance to shut down your play. And of course, RiViven itself is just a premium stat line that generates somewhat infinite value. I would say, of course, if RiViven is never removed, then you just you get so much out of it. But RiViven and Weapon Hilt are kind of the best of both worlds in this package. It has the stat lines and it has the burst speed potential. And so that's kind of like the reason why I haven't been running any of the minions. I have actually put in 2 copies of Runeweaver into my secondary deck, but I'm still playing around with that, so I'll update you guys on how that turns out. And before we continue, I just need to get something out of my chest, and that's just that Hush sucks. Um, you didn't expect the rant in this video, but you're gonna get one from this because For those who aren't really following the meta very well, one of I think now the second most popular deck in the meta is Targon Lee Sin, and that's not to exclude any of the other Zoe decks or say Grand Plaza with or any Targon Plaza deck. Hush is just super prevalent in this meta. I think the stat is about 80% of Targon decks run Hush, and it's most likely at least a 2 or 3 of in those decks. The stat is from Cosmic. I can link his Twitter into the description. He makes some really detailed meta stats, and you could find them really interesting. But back to the rant, Hush is just so efficient at shutting down our game plan. If you go all in on one turn on a Vi and they hush your Vi back down to a 2/4 stat line, not only does that prevent that does like 3 things all at once. It prevents Vi from leveling. It probably doesn't kill the unit anymore because Vi's attack dropped from 10 to 2, and it takes away keywords such as overwhelm or quick attack. That for 2 mana is just absolutely insane. Um, if you compare cards like Hush cards like Vengeance or Harsh Winds that almost do the same thing for one turn, because when you're going all in on one turn, sometimes the effects don't last or you kind of need it to go off. Vengeance costs 7 mana and Harsh Winds costs 6 mana. Harsh Winds doesn't even take away quick attacks, so you can still buff Vi back up and gain a favorable trade. Whereas Hush just completely destroys that, and for 2 mana, it's just so devastating. And it just becomes incredibly frustrating. Sometimes playing around in this meta, at least with this deck in particular. If they have 1 Hush, then sometimes that's all right. But if they're drawing into 2, 3 Hushes in the first 10 cards of your deck, you really can't do anything about it. And on a side note, I do think that the existence of a card like Hush is limiting the power level and experimentation of a lot of champions. Riven and Vi are the first that come to mind because they are what I ran in this deck. But even cards like Victor, I could see really being hurt by cards like Hush. And plenty of others, even like a Fiora that just completely denies it of its win condition. And of course, this means that you can't go all in with a build around a certain champion or deck concept. This deck does, have like a mid-range aggression package that, kind of tries to diversify the win conditions to play around a Hush. But again, it's just so frustrating trying to play these combo decks. And I do think that Hush, just as a whole, being able to silence champions is just a little bit of an overkill, at least for its cost. And so I do wish that something like Hush could be changed down the line. Because I think it is just really limiting some of the experimentation that you can really do in this game. But I don't want to leave you guys on like a really low note with the little rant that I had. I did feel it's necessary, but to keep things light, I'm super excited to show you guys some of the games that I had with this deck, because when this deck pops off, if it fucking pops off, and you'll see it's absolutely crazy. And um, I'm just so excited for you guys. This is the first video that I've made along these lines. It is meant to be a lot less serious and all, and I hope that you all did enjoy. If you did, please leave a comment telling me if you liked the video or not, or what I could have done better. And I hope that you'll see more videos for Jasensational Jank in the future. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. So this is Go Hard, but with Callista. Alright, let's see. Should play very similarly. Let's see. I think we just want to find our combo pieces here. And try to rush down the opponent, set up some early pressure. Wow, okay. RiViven and Vi in the opening hand. Is pretty good. And the Rummage too for survival skills. That's kind of nuts. Alright, so let's just try to stabilize and hope we don't get pressured out too hard here. We're just gonna play RiViven on 3 as soon as we can. Kinda sucks that we're attacking on odds, something really weird with this deck is that when you're attacking on odds, you really want to be playing RiViven on your off turns, but you do want to be attacking with Vi on odds as well. Well, maybe, I don't know actually. But, okay, so he drops Callisto here. This gives us the free kill on the keg, which we do take every time. Kind of funny that the keg actually gives Callisto 1/3 of its level up. That's kind of funny. We do have this Chempunk as a good block for the Callisto though. So he just develops into it with its Twisted Fate, and we're just gonna drop the Chempunk here. Yeah, and this should shut down his attack for the most part. Go hard number 1. Does he have a second go hard to kill? This could be kind of bothersome because then he has a pretty good attack. Alright, so he just played 1. And we get Overwhelm. You're actually mainly playing Reforge here to get Overwhelm. Overwhelm is probably like the best one you can get, especially with Vi on board. He has that 6 mana, so you can't play Vengeance just yet. And now he drops down to 4, so... The question with this attack is, are we killing the Twisted Fate or the Ballista? Killing the Ballista before it levels up could be good. I mean, the same goes for Twisted Fate. I think that keeping our Vi a little bit more healthy by killing the Twisted Fate is better, but I can't really say for certain here. I would have been happy killing either. Because Vi doesn't really die against this deck unless it's to like a pack your bags or to like a, what's it called? It's the Vengeance, yeah. But he does get the Callisto level up here. I guess he could have glimpsed during combat to also... No, he couldn't have, but he would have been close to. Vile Feast? Go our deck runs Vile Feast on us. Looks kind of... Alright, well, we get a second one that can chump block if we need to. Let's see what he does. It's really good that he's at 6 mana. Again, just keeping him under Vengeance mana at all time is really helpful.
What you looking for?
What the fuck? He main decks that? He didn't have a way to create that, did he? Oh, what in the world? Why would he... Okay, this is weird. I don't know what the hell's in his deck. But the cool thing here is that we have the Rummage and the Survival skills, so we can safely keep Vi around. And I think we should just commit to leveling Vi up. He actually gets the keg from the cliff, that's so funny. But I think we are committing to leveling up this Vi here with the Survival skills. This is kind of rough because I only need to play one more card because I'm guaranteed to play this Rummage, but I don't exactly want to waste. Ooh. So I could Rummage again to perfectly get 10, but I don't think that's worth because I don't really have any cards to discard there. So I kind of have to waste this weapon hill. The +2 attack could have been better later on, but I think that was the only playable card in our hand. And as you can see, the survival skill allows our Vi to not only survive the attack, but we get a safely level up Vi here as well. And because the Reforged cards are at burst speed, we get a pretty aggressive attack here as well. And we got a second Overwhelm and a second Revival Skills. Wow, I'm glad we kept the Rummage here. And so I think it's a pretty easy attack here. If we pass the turn over to him, so we can problem with RiViven's sword, whatever it's called. Because if you play it, the opponent can just Ruination, which feels really bad. So unfortunately, we can't play it this turn. Do I have lethal anyway here? That's the only two. So like I can't kill him here unless he so the only way I can kill him here is if he lets us there and I'm whirling his keg with my Vi. But he has the vengeance, yeah. So I think I'm kind of sucks. I think I'm still committed to whirling one of his units. So in this case, this is a misplay because I definitely should have killed or targeted Callista, knowing that he has vengeance in hand. But I was trying to greed it because if he didn't have vengeance, then of course Vi would survive challenging the 2-2. So I still have to commit the whirling here. 3-mana deal 5 is just too important. We're the aggressor in this matchup, so we have to look for every situation that we can deal damage in. Of course, if we dragged in Callista and he made the same play, then his Callista would be dead here, so that kind of sucks.
Where do you stand on cold shots?
This is a little rough. We do have the survival skills here. Ooh, Captain Fair, wow. Yeah, I think that has to be the play. It's just a good blocker for the Callista that survives, and it keeps our RiViven around. His keg doesn't really do anything unless he has like 2 more go hards, but he's running Vile Feast and all other sorts of weird cards in his deck. I'm fine with attack. I think if I survive this attack, then I win next turn on my attack. It's a little tricky. I don't have a way to give Overwhelm to RiViven at burst speed. Okay, he definitely can't kill me this attack. But he does have second vengeance, which is a little bit of an issue. We could block the Callista here and take the survival skills, but I think that's a mistake, because I think if we... Here's what I'm thinking, he's at 0 mana now, so there's no way he can kill RiViven this turn. So, I think we can bait him next turn into trying to kill my RiViven, and then I survival skills him and just surprise him. Quick attack. Weapon hill. So, wow, that's a lot of damage. Obviously we don't get overwhelmed here. So here's we're gonna play the blade here, and this is gonna bait something out of him, and then we just rummage the survival skills and we just beat him that way.
Really just needed some tape to reassemble.
Come on. You know you want to. This deck only runs 2 vengeances. I don't think he's willing to ruinate his board Twisted Fate. And he red cards! The greed! Oh my god, if he gold carded, I'd be fucked there. And get a Vi, holy shit, what is going on?
I'm a people person.
Dude, this is survival. Oh my fucking god, he's at 5 man, he can't do anything. He can't kill. There's no way he kills Ruin this time, unless he has Crumble. And this Vi deals another 5 damage. Oh my god. He's dead here? This is a lot of damage. So we're gonna pull the Callista here with the Vi now because that's the most health to block our Overwhelm with, and I think this is lethal. Yeah, but wow, 1 damage. Absolutely insane game. And survival skills, just being able to survive, just surprise your opponent out of the blue. They just won us their game there. That was insane. Lee Zoe, oh. This is gonna be rough because they have Hush. Not only do they have Hush, which fucking blows us out, but they also have Concussive Palm, which equally blows us out. Oh. So let's just try to race them down. We just want to find an early curve to kind of apply pressure early on, and then hopefully close them out with like a big Vi or something, which we do draw. This is good. Alright, this is probably one of the better hands I could ask for. So we do have the Chem Punk, but we're attacking on odds, which is a little awkward. I would prefer to attack on evens, I think, with this deck, actually. because evens work best with RiViven and Chempunk. But yeah, I just played Zoe here, which means that we most likely have an open attack with this Chempunk that could be really good, because they have a lot of good spells in their deck. That if we yoink them, then like we're pretty happy. What's he doing? He can't Equinox me this turn, so it'll be fine if he gets it. Oh, okay, he gets the Challenger Serpent dude that blocks. But we just jam a second one, and what the fuck's he gonna do, right? No mountain goat, no mountain goat, no mountain goat, no mountain goat, no mountain goat. Anything but mountain goat. Mountain goat, mountain goat. You're not in his hand. Mountain goat. Come on! Let me yoink a card, yes! And he can't pale here either because he hasn't played a card this turn. So I get a free spell here, which is sick. Pale Cascade, alright. That's a really good card. Not only is it a draw, that also like potentially protects our unit here. Mentor, huh? I think we have to kick this Rummage because we don't really have cards in our hand that we can discard. And ooh, this Whirling Death lets us kill the Zoe actually. Or it could even force out like a Deny in his hand, which is super good if he, you know, needs to use it here.
Go, floaty crystals.
And so even if he like, so it goes to a 4/3/3, and then if he pales once, it becomes a 4/3. So we'll block the Sump Trigger here, and alright, and just kind of explain. I didn't go for the Whirling Death here. I think that with Vi in hand, the Whirling Death dealing 5 damage is a little bit more important. Than trying to force out a Deny or anything like that. And we have pretty good open attack here regardless. So I think the Whirling Death, I don't know, maybe it's right to not use the Whirling Death here. I think the risk of a Notify or Deny there was a little bad, but I'm not sure. That could have went both ways easily. Maybe if he committed a Pale Cascade to try to kill my Sump Trigger, I would have went for it. Moonglow. So this still doesn't even force. We do have a good open tech. We also have this Vi. And Vi can challenge Zoe here. And even. And Vi also lets us get a clean hit in with our Chempunk. So this is a pretty good part about like Vi just acting as a challenger while also threatening their key units. I think is a really strong concept. And we know he's kind of low on minions here. He doesn't really have a good block with this. We're definitely going to challenge the Zoe. I think it's pretty crucial that Zoe doesn't level up here. Or at least we try to. What is this? If he pales, I can pale back. And I also have the Concussive Palm. So he actually lets this Chempunk through. And because I think we have to play a lot, very aggressively here. So I'm actually going to use this Weapon Hill to push 2 damage because it's so important that we kill them before they get to their, you know, their combo. And a Deny, wow, that's insane. Wow. We're looking to try to kill him next turn. This is kind of nuts, honestly. We forced out a Concussive Palm last turn when we weren't even threatening lethal. That was huge. And he's only at 6 minutes. It's so important versus a Lee Sin deck to force them to use their mana very awkwardly.
A pleasure to see you,
because when they have less mana, they have so much less flexibility. And now that he's down to 1 mana, sure, you can gem the Lethan to challenge. But I think very crucially, we don't want to commit anything too much here. Because if he tries to challenge our Vi, for example, we can just Whirling Death his Lethan. And so I think it's better to just pass our mana here, and we just go in now. We have this deny from his part that could, you know, be really crucial. And we do have another Pale Cascade that could catch him off guard, and we're actually just looking to kill him here. So we're gonna drag in the tail here instead of any of the other units, simply because we're trying to look to kill him this turn, because if the game goes on too long, I think we just lose if we don't kill him. And very crucially, I have mana for Whirling Death and Deny. And so saving that 3 mana last turn, even though it was pretty easy to bank 3 mana, it was definitely very crucial here. Because now we have really good flexibility, and he's the one who has to play his cards first, because otherwise he's dead. And that's very important as well, just setting up turns where if you leave him at 1 health, then he doesn't have to play cards first. He forces you to play a card first to threaten lethal, but because we threaten lethal with the setup, then he's always forced to play proactively and we can play reactively. And so if he tries to palm my Vi, we do have this deny. He could palm and deny my deny, which would be really bad. But then I could play Whirling Death on stack to kill his Lethan at least. So let's see what he does. So he Bastions here. So this leaves him at 1, and now we have this Pale Cascade that we also joined from his deck. And now whatever he plays, we can deny. So now if he tries to palm me, I can deny his palm, and we win. Come on, come on, come on. And we have this Whirling Death for additional 5 damage if we need it. Nice. Alright, that's sick, because obviously if he had a Hush on that turn, I just lose on the spot. He clears my board, and then I can't do anything about it. So that was lucky that he didn't have Hush, and just being able to set up lethal on the attack is really important. Scouts, huh? Okay, I think if we're favored or not, I think it's possible, especially if they have a really slow start. So if they pass until 3 and play Plaza on 3, then we have a good chance of being able to apply a lot of pressure early on to really tempo them out. So I like this really early curve with Ballista, Pickpocket, and Riven. And we even get the Tri-Beam here with 2 3-drops in hand, which is really important. Unfortunately, again, we're attacking on odds, and so we don't get the turn 2 attack with our Pickpocket here, but we get, wow, we get double Pickpocket. This is pretty good.
I got the goods.
And against like a Scouts deck, if we force out any of his units before he plays Plaza, then it's kind of like getting value out of it, which is
Take from the rich, give
you know,
from the
it's and if we wow.
Check out the goods on this
Yeah,
one.
so this is insane.
Jack
What do we
pocket.
get? Sharp Sight and Pursuit. This is the really good thing about Pickpocket in this matchup in particular, is that they run some really, really good spells. So he starts off with Double Trouble, and so he gets 2 1/1s, which I'm pretty happy about. Unfortunately, he gets a pretty good trade here, but I think he's always committed to attacking. And so this is a really important thing against Scouts as well, is that you need to learn how to play, you need to learn when you can play reactively to their units, because the thing with Grand Plaza is that because it only lasts 1 round, they're kind of committed to attacking on their turn always. And so you can wait to play your cards after they attack. And so yeah, he's gonna challenge my units here. I don't play Riven here, importantly, because if I play Riven here, he just challenges with the bear. But because I drew Sharp Sight, I can actually, you know, value trade with the bear. And he actually pulls in the Chempunk here, which is a little surprising. He's playing around exactly stolen Sharp Sight, for some reason, I guess. So I think it's fine just to take the weapon hilt trade here. What do I do here? If I open attack, they do have cards like Riposte, which stops it. This top deck Scorched Earth is huge. Scorched Earth on their off turns is insane. I'd probably use it here. Their off turns are mostly just they don't usually play too many units on their off turns. This card makes it a little bit weird because now I can't really attack my Ballista. So I'm just gonna take this Scorched Earth here and make his next turn as awkward as possible. And this is scaling my Tri-Beam up really good, which is important as well. He passes, I pass. He burns mana here. I'm pretty happy. I don't really have a good attack. Vi here is good too because now we're getting our weapon, our blade fragments in hand. He plays Quinn. See, if he had what's it called, Grand Plaza up, this would be so much scarier. But now that only his Valor has challenge, I think we're pretty safe to just play some treasure here and just scale up our Tri-Beam a little bit more. Again, even though Rummage is really good, it's hard to have like reliable discard targets in this deck. And none of our units die here against his initial challenge, so he'd have to like commit a sharp sight or something into this combat in order to even do anything with these units. And so this is kind of a strange turn to me. If he wants to just trade sharp sights, I'm pretty happy with that. And now he doesn't even have any challenges except for his Fleetwing Tracker. And so I'll just pass here, keep mana up for sharp sight. And he has a pretty bad attack too. So this is pretty much just trading for sharp sights if he has it. It's likely to assume that he does at this point. Yeah, so we just trade sharp sights, just fine. I already have, I think these are the two. Yeah, I already have the Overwhelm Fragment, which is pretty much the only key one that I need here. And there's a survival skills as well. Vi with Rally, that's another really exciting deck idea, but then you can't really give Vi Overwhelm unless he played like Katarina or something. That'd be really strange. I think it's a little too jank. Because we do have the survival skills, I think I can go for an attack on the Quinn. Because if he doesn't have like a Riposte or another sharp sight, even if he has sharp sight, Quinn will die. But if he doesn't have like a Riposte, then I'm pretty good taking this attack. And I can even rally here if the opponent plays. Ooh, this is tempting. It's unfortunate that we didn't get the quick attack. I think that it's more important to keep the Vi up. And we can even just play survival skills. So I think this is where survival skills is just so insane. Because I play it, he can't stop it, and now my units won't die this turn. This is so insane. This pretty much stops his attack completely, because now he can't even trade away his units. Except for, you know, attack with his 2 elusives if he chooses to. See, he deals 3 damage this turn, and he played Quinn with the MF on board. How insane is that? He still goes for a challenge. Alright, interesting. Alright, so he just deals 2 damage to my Iron Ballista to get an additional attack. Which I think is the right play from him, but this Tri-Beam is just gonna do work. I could have rallied this turn, you know, just to capitalize on the fact that my units can't die. That could have been better, but I think that we have this setup where we can just grant 2 units quick attack and overwhelm, and then rally with that next turn, and that's fucking insane. And so now he deals 2 damage. He doesn't kill me. I think I just pop off and kill him this turn. Check this out. This combo is fucking sick. So I'm gonna give Vi, you know, quick attack and overwhelm, and Vi is just gonna be a truck. Absolutely disgusting. And I get the blade. I could open attack here and just not let him do anything. So it's like if he plays like a Bright Steel Protector, then that's kind of unfortunate. But I think getting this blade, oh my god, do you see this combo, guys? And I have 3 mana for rally. Like, what the fuck is he gonna do? He just got destroyed at the end.